Hey sightseers, Sightseeing Sally here. I'm with Marty. Oops, Meandering Marty, because if you didn't know, Marty, Meandering Marty, as he is now known on YouTube, has his own YouTube channel. But today, he's working security and currently acting as dog walker. But never mind that, sightseers. Today we're on a mission to explore some of northern Nebraska's backroads, checking out their small, forgotten towns. This one here happens to be Verdell, population 29. And other than the traffic coming down the highway, Highway 12, this would be a quiet little town. The kind that doesn't see much action, except for the occasional wayward tourist and sightseers. Anyways, what really piqued my interest and why I wanted to stop here was the sign that we saw as we were driving by. See, it says jail and has an arm with a finger pointing in that direction. And if I'm not mistaken, that is an outline of Lewis and Clark. And all I'm thinking is, did Lewis and Clark somehow end up in jail over here? Okay, I know, not likely. It's more likely that Lewis and Clark traveled through this area and the town wanting us to know that this is on the Lewis and Clark Trail, that they have a jail here that's left over from their early times. But you know, those are just some of the thoughts that run through my mind when I see things like that. Anyways, why don't we go take a closer look at the old jail and see what this old relic looks like. I can see we won't be going inside today. They have it kind of like jimmied in here, and then I don't know. I don't think I'm going to mess with that just because if they don't want us going inside, I don't want to be breaking the law. But you can see the old jail has bars up there, you know, to prevent prisoners from escaping. On the opposite side, they actually have two windows, or had two windows in play. Without being able to actually go on inside, I can't say this for sure, but I'm assuming because there was a door here and there was only the one window on that side, that there was probably 3 different cells, each one having a view. I'm guessing though that with a town this size, this small, the jail probably didn't see much action. Now if you look back over here, you can see a brick building, a building that looks rather interesting, and coincidentally there's this really long sidewalk kind of leading the way in that direction. We'll head up there momentarily. But first, I wanted to point out a few more buildings here on Main Street. We can see over here this blue building, this blue concrete block style building. Used to be the Three River Telco. Remember when landlines were a thing? I do. I used to tie up our home phone all the time, yakking with my friends. Well, the thing I want to point out about this, and some of you may recall from the video that we did on Big Brutus and the little town that modern marvel was associated with, Mineral Point, if I remember correctly, that was the name of the town over in Kansas. Well, Marty had pointed out there was a similar looking building, except it was like a cream color block building. Well, according to what Marty said, that building housed all the relays for the telephone company.
Years ago, when you used to dial the phone with the rotary and you'd hear that clicking in the receiver, those buildings held all the relays that were clicking and opening, telling where to route that call.
And based on the fact that this actually has a window air conditioner and a generator there, I would say that this building does the same thing. It could be that there are some locals who have yet to switch over to cell phones completely. And even if not, I can tell you that Marty would say that this is what that used to be, an old relay house.
Yeah, that's an old relay house or relay station for the phone company. Years ago when they first started, they had these big, huge, tall, clear glass batteries that they had to go around. I don't know if they filled them up with deionized water or put acid back in them, but they would check up on them and recharge them or check to see if they were charged. That's pretty old.
And then the other building on this block, besides the Three River Telco, is this brick building here, which, if I had to guess, may have been a store at one time. I originally thought it may have been some sort of garage or perhaps a fire station, but Marty pointed out that this opening here seemed way too narrow for any kind of vehicle to pass through. But who knows? Only the old-timers would be able to answer that question, and so far we have yet to run into anybody locally that would be able to tell me that. And then across the street you have the David R. Morgan American Legion Post 223, which from the looks of it is still in use today. If you head over to the corner of Peyton and Main, you'll find the Verdell Town Park. This is one of those town parks that bring nostalgia to anyone who grew up in the 70s and 80s. Back before they felt the need to childproof everything and you had to give up anything that was remotely fun in the world of just being a kid. Can somebody give me a push? This is where you learned as a child how the world worked. Like, for instance, gravity. When little Susie climbed all the way up to the top of the slide for the very first time and then slid down and took a faceplant into the ground, busting out her teeth, she didn't know that gravity existed, but I guarantee you after that, she did. Then there's that mistaken notion that every kid has that they can fly. Well, I guarantee you when little Tommy climbed up to the top of this hexagon-y shaped type thing, he thought he could soar like a bird. But as soon as he jumped off and broke his leg, he quickly learned the truth. But at least he learned. And then there's the hard truths related to the teeter-totter. If you were the kid who weighed $120 and everybody else weighed 240, you never got down from the top of the teeter. Or likewise, if you were the one that was overweight, well, you quickly learned that the teeter-totter was not exactly your friend. Yep, these were the harsh lessons American kids used to learn growing up each summer, back before they childproofed everything. Obviously, I'm talking in jest. I really wouldn't want any kids to get hurt. It's just that there's something to be said about this old-time playground equipment that really just evokes a sort of nostalgia in those of us who grew up playing on it. It's kind of like, if you know, you know. You know? You know what I'm saying? Anyways, moving on. And there's the path leading up to that brick building. Given its close proximity to this trailer home and all the items that have been placed along the sidewalk there, I think I'm not going to walk up that way just because this here could now be on private property. Instead, we're going to continue on up the sidewalk and make our way up the street around. I was able to confirm that that was an old school. As I was filming the old relay building, a gentleman pulled up in a pickup truck with his dog and he said, "You must not be from around here." And I said, "How did you know? I'm from Wisconsin." And he said, "You're taking pictures of things that people around here wouldn't ordinarily look twice at." And I'm like, guilty as charged. Anyways, you can see there is the side of the old school. Doesn't look like we can actually get up to the front of it. But never fear, there is a backside, which we're going to go to next. By the way, for those of you following along on Google Earth, I just walked up Iowa Ave and I'm heading over to East First Street. And I've attracted some attention from the local welcoming crew, who obviously know their limits as to how far they can walk out. Good boys, good doggies. Yeah, you stay back there. We don't need oh, they must have gotten distracted by something because you can see the one is just kind of hanging out in the grass now. Probably doing something. Dogs do. Leaving their mark. And here we are at the backside of the school. I don't know how many children went to school here. The gentleman I talked to said he didn't know. But as you can see, it is no longer in use, has fallen into some disrepair. Interestingly enough, if you walk just a little ways past the school, past the house that's there, you get a really nice view of the main street, or a pretty good view of the main street. You can see the American Legion post, and then in the background, the grain elevator that's there. In the foreground, the blue building, the telco building. In a lot of towns that we've seen, at least back in Wisconsin, this here would have been an ideal spot to build your home, have it overlooking the town. Here they chose to put up the school, which is kind of interesting that they did that. As you can see, I'm back up on Main Street. I wanted to show you where the locals get their mail. They don't have mail delivered to them. They come over here and pick up their mail out of their own little personal box. And then I would be remiss if I didn't show you this interesting looking contraption. Obviously built to look like a locomotive, like a little train, a little coal-fired engine, but obviously this thing's not being powered by coal or anything else. I'm thinking it's powered by regular old fuel. Like somebody did this as a hobby and created this. This is just very unique. I'm no mechanic. I can recognize certain parts. I definitely know the difference between blinker fluid and windshield washer fluid. Come on, that was a joke, okay? If you didn't get it, that was a joke. To me, it almost appears as if this was built out of an old truck. You've got the front wheels there, this metal frame here, dual wheels on the back, I'm assuming on both sides. There, that looks like the radiator. And then I can see some sort of belt there. I'm not sure if that's a drive belt or what that's called. And then there's the engine compartment, or the components there. Well, that's my educated guess. And then moving along, we can get a good view of the three buildings that were built here on Main Street. This middle one, I guess, used to be an old store. The other two, I don't really know anything about. I can tell you though that this middle one is still a store, just not the kind of store it used to be. You can actually go in there and find yourself some vintage, antique items, whatever you like to find in the old junk stores, you're going to find it in there. And then this building here is kind of interesting, trying to piece together what it used to hold. I'm having a little bit of difficulty just because I can't read lettering backwards. I've never been able to really do that, especially when it's painted in there real kind of fancy like, and it's just not clicking for me. But there is this sticker back here that says North American Hunting Club official member. Marty's got some thoughts on it. Why don't we let him explain what this building used to be, or at least what he suspects it used to be.
I suspect by how well everything's done on here that it probably was a bank, and if you look inside it does look like a vault. I mean, it's hard to see through all the roof caved in and all that, but there does look like there's a vault in there. So I'm going to say this is a bank, and what's really nice is they got the leaded glass up there. It's not stained glass, it's just a type of glass that was leaded in. It's kind of neat. Extra money spent. Bank's got money.
Well, let's move on. We've spent plenty of time here, and as far as I can tell from looking at the map, there are several other small towns along this route, probably forgotten by many who don't take the time to stop and check them out. So let's say goodbye to Verdell and move on to whatever's next. Next up, Lynch, Nebraska, established 1892. Well, look at this, sightseers. Another Lewis and Clark site. This here happens to be marking the campsite where they camped on the bank of the Missouri River at the base of a river landmark near here, now called the Tower. Huh. We've been running into a lot of Lewis and Clark landmarks on this trip. This one happens to be right outside our next stop, which is Lynch. Driving into town, we can see there's some newer construction to my right and some older construction to my left. Look at that. They've got a mobile gas station here. They even have the iconic Pegasus on the side of the building, along with the mobile sign. And then if we look on the side of this building, you can see a mural painted tribute to the railroad that came in. From what I understand, this is one of those towns that sprung up because of the railroad. Interesting. You know how we were just talking about Lewis and Clark and that spot where they camped? I just spotted a sign pointing us in the correct direction for the tower where they camped. You must have to drive up the road that way, and it's got to be over somewhere by the river. I don't know if we'll actually drive up over there. That'll totally sidetrack us off of our plan today, which was to go along and film some of these forgotten towns along Nebraska 12. Anyways, you can see that they must love basketball here because they have a community basketball court. And it appears they still have an operating theater here in town. And if this is accurate, they'll be showing the long game tonight at 7 because it's showing May 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th. As it just so happens, today is May 18th, the day that we're recording this. So cool, if we stick around long enough, we can go see a movie. For a small town in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska, this place looks to be pretty happening. They've got the 402 Boutique, and then up over here is Bubba's, where the Pepsi sign is. Probably, if you want to find out anything about the town, this would be where it's at. Speaking of telling you where it's at, I can tell you that tomorrow, Sunday, May 19th, they're having a lunch special. Chicken fajitas with Spanish rice, corn salad, choice of dessert, bread pudding or blueberry dessert. Oh, they appreciate pre-orders. Oh, sounds so good. And only $11 plus tax. Come on. Oh, not plus tax. Including tax. My bad. I'm so overcome by how good that sounds, I can't even read right. Well, let's move along here and see what else we can find here in Lynch. Looks like they still have a post office here. Yep. Established in 1890. The post office. That doesn't necessarily mean that the post office has been in this building that whole time, as we've discovered along our journeys that typically the post office tends to move around. And then across the street you've got the Nebraska State Bank building. And what's really interesting about that, besides the fact that it has this old Nebraska State Bank clock on the front of it, is that it's also home to a bowling alley known as Eagle Lanes. Imagine that'd be a fun thing to do in winter, come Friday, Saturday night. Speaking of winter, they must get some brutal winters here because that snowblower has chains on the tires. Yikes, you ain't joking around when you've got chains on your snowblower tires. I must get some pretty nasty winters. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed it, but here's the Three River Telco building, the main building, providing phone, broadband, and cable. I guess I was right about that building over in Verdell. It must still be in use today. Oh, sightseers, you gotta check this out. It's an old avian just sitting there waiting for someone like me to come along and scoop it up. Although I have a feeling Marty would have something to say about that. And it wouldn't be yes. If you look way down at the end of the street, you can see the Nebraska State Bank where we were, the bowling alley, and Bubba's. But down over here, you'll find the Lynch Public Library, and this building, which I believe used to house the fire department. Because if you look up behind the shed where the John Deere tractor is sitting, you can see a siren, a bell. There's even an old fire truck sitting back there. See? There's the fire truck. Not only that, if you look directly across the street, you'll find where the Lynch Rural Fire Department is now. They have a nice little grocery store here called Valley Foods. We went inside and grabbed some bananas and other necessities because I was starting to get woozy from not eating. Of course, Marty had to get himself some donuts.
I need my sugar fix. I haven't had sugar in 2 weeks.
Yes, Marty has been doing really well, staying off the sugar train.
I was like a crackhead on sugar. It was bad.
Well, I wouldn't have gone so far as to describe it as that, but, you know.
Well, I felt like that.
Out of the mouth of Marty. Before we move on, I just want to show a few more stops here. One of them being the Lynch Public Library. Besides the library, they have a community hall, a couple of churches, and Jay's Garage. Oh, look at the sign in the window. I love this. Especially the cute dog riding on the bike. Well, why don't we move on? I think there's one or two more little towns along Highway 12 that we wanted to show you before we call it.
I think he likes you.
I have a new boyfriend, huh? Our final stop for the day, Bristow, population 65. The little town with a big heart. Wow, the birds are just chirping like crazy. I feel like it's been such a long time since I've heard birds like this. I mean, when you get out in the desert, you don't hear such noises. You might hear the occasional mourning dove, but that's like heaven to my ears. Anyways, we're over at the corner of Bank Street and Prairie Street. Prairie Street being the main drag here in Bristow. You can see over here on this corner, on the very corner of Bank and Prairie, is this building, which I suspect may have been an old service station at one point. And then you got the fire department with the old siren in the back. Don't tell Marty, or he's going to be trying to buy it. And then over here, we have the goose that laid the golden egg. Or maybe it's the golden goose that laid the white egg. Either way, it works. I noticed, though, that the building has several horseshoes on it. You can see two of them here, and they're all like this so that the luck doesn't run out. There's even one up by the golden goose. And then moving along, we have what used to be M&M Lockers Quality Meats. They even have a sign saying open, come in, but it doesn't look like they're open, so I don't know. Maybe I just came on the wrong day. Not a very big town, just a tiny little town here in Nebraska. Nebraska State Bank does have a branch here, and there is a working post office, a few old buildings here on Main Street, and a community basketball court. Hey, that's all you need, right? Place to shoot some hoops, play a little one-on-one, a little pickup game of horse. I haven't shot a basketball in so long, I don't even know if I could get her in. I still remember how to do a layup though. Here, let me show you. Yeah, I know. Now y'all know why I didn't make it to the women's NBA. But I have to say that this court here, just seeing the old outdoor basketball court, brings back some memories. Just saying.